My name is Christian Sarti. I am have been an RP for Luxembourg, a resource person since 1984. So I am Findhorn is very dear to my heart, and right now I was really curious how things are unfolding and who is the best to talk to than Terry Gilbey, the new the new CEO of the new SCO, I think is the new um, judicial form of a foundation in Scotland. So you have lots of experience. You have been CEO of SLN, the famous spiritual community, and also been CEO of Wikimedia, of which Wikipedia is part. So you have lots of experience. And I've heard in another interview that you like to take things apart. So how is taking things apart for you going now, and how is it putting things together? So I'm very curious about what is happening right now in Findhorn in many different levels. So that's what I intend to talk to you now.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you, Terry.
Yeah, so just a couple of little things there. I was actually the chief operating officer for Wikipedia, not the CEO. And yes, had a varied career. Mainly, I have been working with charitable organizations for the last 10 plus years after a corporate life. And very happy to be with you here talking about the future and what is happening with the Findhorn Foundation SCIO, Scottish Charitable Incorporated Organization is what that stands for. So yeah,
Yeah, right now there is it is a huge period of crisis. I mean, all the years before, the name of the Phoenix has been all over the place. I mean, the Phoenix shop, the Phoenix cafe, and right now there has been actually a fire, and we all wonder, is the phoenix going to rise from its ashes again? That's a
yeah.
really powerful picture. So, is there a vision for the future, and what can be offered by Findhorn, by actually the Findhorn Foundation? Because there's a difference between the Findhorn Foundation and the community. So it's a very complex situation, and it would be really nice to get some clarity.
Right. Yeah, it is a super complex configuration between the Findhorn Foundation, the community, the eco park, the eco village here, which is thriving, by the way. Um, so these things are very interconnected and have been for decades. And I think what we're exploring as we go through this kind of rebirth of many portions of it is each is coming to into its own. So I can speak around what's happening with the Findhorn Foundation Trust, SCIO. But there is a lot of exciting things happening in the eco village itself. And of course, the community, whether we think about the community as the community in the park, the global Findhorn community, over 75,000 people around the world connected. And it's a magical thing. So to talk a little bit about what is emerging with the SCIO, I can give you a little bit of history over the last 18 months or so, which is I joined in January, February of 2023. And so the Findhorn Foundation Trust is winding down. The Findhorn Foundation Trust was the holder of many of the assets here in the park. It held a global spiritual community and offered a wide range of education, most of which was hosted here in the park. So, what is happening with the trust right now is we are uh, divesting many of the assets to the local park community here. So a lot of the land you talked a moment ago about the Phoenix shop and the Phoenix Cafe, all of these things, which are really community focused things, are being turned into and turned over to the local park community through a group called the Eco Village Findhorn, which is a community-based organization which has been formed, and they'll be taking its legal structure is based around community ownership, and so they will be taking on the stewardship of many of portions of the park. We're also unfortunately selling Clooney Hill, which many people have had a lengthy relationship with. We expect that will finish its transaction towards the end of this month or very early next. And although I can't share who is taking that over, because we're going to be doing a joint announcement here shortly, but I'm really excited that this is a group that have had a connection with Findhorn historically. They are looking to maintain the sanctuary that has been in that building for decades and to make that available to the local Findhorn community in the area, and also continue to collaborate with the emerging Findhorn Foundation Skio and any of the groups here on the park that want to continue to work in that space. So that is very exciting. And I expect that within the next 6 to 9 months, we'll see a major shift from the ownership of assets by the Findhorn Foundation Trust over to ownership of assets by the local park community here. So that is all very exciting stuff.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. I just had a question around Clooney because Clooney has also grown quite strongly in my own heart. Because Clooney has so much history, so much energy has been built up. All these thousands or even 100,000 people who have had this experience there have built up a capital of energy, of history, of everything that means something to Findhorn. So is some of that going to be preserved? Is the place going to be, in some ways reused by the foundation indirectly, like rented or leased for some events or something like that? That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it will work out yet, as the future of the Skio is emerging, and we can talk about that in a few moments. But we've certainly had early conversations around how do we collaborate with the new owners. As I said, they want to keep the sanctuary open for use by local community members. So that's super exciting. So that energetic point will remain. Um, I've certainly talked with them about the potential to host events there and potential education experiences. And I think that they will be very receptive to other education and teaching that comes out of the park being hosted there as well. I think they're putting together a very exciting vision, which not only honors the history of the building, but also continues to co-create with the Findhorn community, both locally and perhaps even broader. So it's a very exciting opportunity for that building, and they're committed to respecting its legacy, which is one of the reasons that although they weren't the highest financial bid, when we went into attunement around the selection of who we would like to move forward with, they came very much and very clearly into the field as the right choice. And they've been just a delight to work with through this process.
So that sounds really good, and I'm very happy about what you just said. And Clooney has been one of the centers of the community, and the other center in the park, the community center, has also, been destroyed by the fire. So in actual fact, there is no more real center in the community. So my question is, when is a new community center going to be built? Because I feel that's really important to keep all the energies kind of focused, around the foundation or around whatever is happening?
Yeah. It's a great question. So yeah, it was so sad to lose both the community center. I was fortunate enough when I was here in 2019 to actually have experienced the community center and been in it. It was a great loss, as was the loss of the sanctuary, which has actually started to re-emerge from the ground now, thanks to the effort of Park Eco Village Trust. And that's one of the things that the Findhorn Foundation Trust is doing, is having turned over the land and uh, the co-creation of the new sanctuary. The community center is an interesting question. I think by virtue of its name, that work sits in the community, not in the Findhorn Foundation Trust. So what plans they have after we have turned over much of the land and the Park Eco Village to Eco Village Findhorn, I don't know. That's something that they will have to plan for, and we'll see how that emerges out of their future plans. At the moment, Findhorn Foundation Skio doesn't have plans to rebuild a quote community center. We are looking at what is possible in the park in terms of what is needed to host experience weeks here. And certainly those kinds of facilities will be very much needed. But the situation in the park is quite sad. Many of the buildings here have been neglected for decades in terms of keeping up with maintenance. And so the amount of investment that's going to be needed to revitalize a really energetically positive and well-grounded set of education facilities here, that's going to take a lot of work.
The word investment triggers another question by me is when these buildings were burned, there was an insurance, and will there be some money left for building a new community center? What has come out from insurance money?
Yeah, no, the insurance money actually has was used to get the trust through the year or so after that.
Oh yeah.
I think in terms of the way that the trust is conveying a lot of these assets into the community at very low, or if not in some cases zero cost. We're transferring those assets to the community to hopefully enable that.
Oh yeah.
But no, the insurance money was actually spent in terms of clearing up the site, maintaining it, and continuing to support the trust through that time. It was a very difficult time.
So a new community center will be an entirely new project, and in a way that
Yes.
sounds kind of like new, fresh energy having to come from all the participants that are there. All
Absolutely, as has been the sanctuary build, which is going on right now. That has been a big growth out of the ashes. The Findhorn Foundation Trust, as it was, has conveyed that land over to the Park Eco Village Trust. And thanks to them and the community, not just here in the park, but globally, who have put the funds together, put the plans together, and have helped that start to reemerge. And it's super exciting that I think the sanctuary could be opening its doors towards the end of this year, if not certainly by very early next year. And I'm hopeful that a community center can grow along the same lines out of the community.
yeah, that sounds really, really beautiful. One of the assets of the foundation was its huge database. All I don't know how many 100,000 people you have on the mail list, and I heard that at some point you're going to send out letters or emails asking people to give authorization to give your addresses to other parts of the community? Because I have also felt that people who want to organize something, they don't have that huge asset that has been the mailing list, so they have to start from scratch. So can you confirm that that's going to happen?
So uh, I don't know exactly how that will happen. So Findhorn Foundation Skio, the successor organization, has custodianship of that. We need to be very respectful of GDPR and data protection requirements. We are in conversation with Eco Village Findhorn around how collaboratively and collectively do we go around engaging the audience in all of the efforts that are going on in the park. But specifically, I actually don't know what those plans are yet because they haven't been formed.
Okay.
But we have an agreement that, we want to collaborate as a community in the park, as a global community.
Yeah, that's very understandable. Another question is also about young people. You know, when you walk in the park or participate in events, you see that the age average is very high, and the number of really young faces is not that huge. So how is do you have a vision for the future where, a way to attract more young people? Because, the Findhorn Foundation was created in the 60s, and all these people, are growing old and at some point are not going to be there anymore. So we need a new generation and maybe a new vision for a new generation.
Yeah, so this is one of the key factors that I think the Findhorn Foundation Skio we are all already actively addressing, because you're right, we have an aging population in our global community. And from a Skio perspective, I think about our global community. Anybody, regardless of time or place, that feels called to the connection to spirit and identifies with the three principles that have been given over to us on the legacy of 60 years here. So we're working really hard to engage new audiences. You'll see that we've built a new website. It's very different than the old one. It was built with a lot of input from people that we want to engage with. We're very focused on using social media to engage with people. This is the media of the future. And from a Skio perspective, we're very focused on reaching out globally, well beyond just the park. This is a very special place, but it also has a lot of barriers to entry for people to come. And so, I see the role of the Skio as being out in the world, connecting with new audiences, connecting with people in a way that they can relate to,
Mm.
um, and trying to be very inviting, very inclusive, very open. And hopefully we can spread the community from being um, just here in the park, and continue to expand this global network of light that has been built over the last 50 and 60 years.
Yeah, there's a paradox. There's a global network of light, and Finton has so much been identified with the local power points. There's a very powerful power point in the park. There has been one behind Clooney, and people have identified, I at least have identified so much with these kind of energies, which are earth energies, and have kind of uh, amplified all this spiritual work because of all these earth energies. So how can one disconnect Findhorn from the place? I think that's quite challenging.
There's no intent to disconnect at all, right? It's a both and situation. I am hopeful that that our education programs, Experience Week, can return to the park when we've got infrastructure that can give people a complete experience. And I'm talking about the Experience Week of history, where it was working in the departments, it was experiencing love in action, all of those things, which are an important piece of that transformational field. But this is not about disconnecting from the park, disconnecting from Clooney, disconnecting from any of the energy points. It's a both and conversation, but it's also recognizing that there are uh, tens of thousands of people out there in the world who don't have the privilege of being able to travel to Scotland.
Exactly.
They are they struggle with the financial burden. The carbon footprint for people to travel to this very special place is high. It's a challenging place to get to.
Exactly.
It takes an enormous amount of time, and that is a very valuable commodity for people in this world where it's competing against family time, it's competing against other commitments that people may have. Um, you know, and it's also a cultural thing, which is um, how do we make sure that we are inclusive and respectful of other people's culture as we expand this opportunity for them to connect with spirit, to recognize the value of the principles, um, doing it not just in the north of Scotland, but also connecting in a way that is congruent with other people's cultures and respectful of their cultures and inclusive of their cultures.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And there comes in also the RP network, of which I've been a part for, yeah, practically 40 years, and I've seen that, at some points it seemed very important, and then at some other point I didn't see how much it was being used. In the 80s and 90s, I've organized quite a few workshops with people coming from Findhorn in Luxembourg locally, and that it felt really good to do that. But then for a long while, nothing happened anymore, and it feels like now something really new needs to happen in the RP network. So, do you have plans to use us? Because we're there, and we are also quite old, so we need also to be rejuvenated.
Right. Yeah, I think, the co-creation with the RP network is a vital part of the future, right? We have got untold wisdom out in the world. We've got untold, untapped energies for good already out in the world. And so one of the aims for the SKIO, the emerging organization, will be to how do we become a support network to the RPs? Because anytime that we can bring strength, we can bring diversity, we can bring activity to this network of light, and those points are already in the world.
Yeah,
They're in the RP network, they're in the Fellows network, they're in everybody that's ever attended a program here. That light was lit, right? We planted that seed. I think one of the important roles that the SKIO can have out in the world is bringing energy and support to those little flames, and how do we make them big flames, right?
yeah,
You raise a great question around we have an aging network, both here in the park. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's a challenge to find young people to come here that can have affordable housing, that have jobs that allow them to remain here. All of those economics are a challenge in the park. Um, we have a aging or an older demographic in our RP and Fellows network, but I'm really excited that we are already seeing shifts as I look at the data for our social media, for our website. We are engaging a younger audience, even with the work that we've done in the last 90 days. That 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 message is starting to appeal to a slightly younger audience. And I put that as a really great success. It's the first time, I think, looking at the data, probably in a few years, that we've seen that shift move in the dial move in that direction. So I'm very excited by it.
yeah. It is actually very important for younger generations to have that spiritual anchor, because they don't have the traditional churches anymore. These have been
Right.
long time rejected by these new generations. and there's nothing to replace it. So they are just floating between their whatever TikToks and YouTubes. You know, I have young children and I see them a little bit unanchored spiritually, so they really need something. And maybe Findhorn can find ways that interest them, that, you know, because Findhorn is actually connecting spirituality to ecology. And there's this huge emergency that we have in the climate change. Maybe Findhorn is the right place to really connect spiritual and ecology. What is your take on that?
I I agree entirely. You know, I think our three principles speak to that. The spiritual but not religious is a growing group across the world. There's a lot of research into that. This rejection of formal religion or more formal religion, people are still seeking this connection. They're still seeking a spiritual grounding, but outside of the structure of traditional religion. I think Findhorn definitely operates in that space. You know, we have the opportunity to be a far more open, inclusive, and inviting organization to be a participant in. I think our focus on the environment, our co-creation with nature, which is, you know, the environmental focus really extends from co-creation with nature. And I think this is a very important shift in the world. We are struggling with climate change. We are struggling with the consumption of resources. All of these things are very, very important to all of us, and certainly a focus of the younger parts of the population. And if we can provide a framework that gives them an anchor point, a reference point to work with on that, I think that's part of doing our job. Um, yeah, that's definitely part of doing our job.
Yeah, that's there's lots of things going on and having to unfold. And so, what's going to happen this winter? Do you have concrete plans? What is are you going to continue to do experience weeks on air raid, and or is something going to happen in the park, or what is going to happen?
Yeah, so our right now we offer our Iona retreat, which is an experience for up to six people on in Trebarn on the island of Iona. That will continue through into next year. We don't see any changes coming there. It's been very, very successful since its launch. The feedback has been incredibly positive, and the teams worked very hard to create that. We will be taking a little bit of downtime there in order to continue to uh, revitalize and rehab Trey Barn as a building. Again, it has struggled with deferred maintenance, and it needs some love and care. So we'll be doing that over the winter. Air Raid is emerging. Our hope is that we will soon be able to deliver an experience week on Air Raid. Very exciting because it really brings together that elements of nature, the elements of community, the elements of the spiritual impulse. So it's got all of the very special ingredients that we need to bring about an experience week there on the island of Araid. And I'll actually be going out there week after next
Yeah.
to start work on laying the grounds there. In the park, we don't have any plans yet. There's, you know, a lot of things in flux here in the park and at play, and it's going to take a lot of work to be able to create the infrastructure here to host ongoing education for not just for the Findhorn Foundation, but for other organizations in the park. Um, I think the park is able to host events to some extent, but when you're doing it week after week and you've got a lot of people that are coming through, um, that takes a lot of logistics to make happen.
And
Uh,
accommodations also.
Accommodation, facilities, kitchen, all of these things. And we just don't have those in the park in a way that we could sustain groups week after week after week. I think some small workshops. There's just been a very successful week here in the Universal Hall, so it can happen. But in terms of it going on week after week after week, I think we have to create a stronger infrastructure underneath it to host those events again here in the park. So
Yeah, like
when
conference.
that will be, we'll see.
Yeah, the conferences have always been one of the big assets of the foundation. Every, I don't know, was every 2 years or it was very successful and it was also a very big source of income. So are you planning on doing something again, like a conference?
Right now on our roadmap, we're really focusing on Experience Week.
Oh yeah.
I think what is interesting is the conferences did bring in a lot of people, and as has been talked about, it brought in a lot of money. But I think what went unrecognized was the amount of expense that it drove into the system. And as I look back over the financial records of the organization, I think this is one of the challenges where people saw they focused on what we call the revenue number, right? Which was, oh, how much money is coming in? But we weren't doing a good job of accounting for how much money was going out.
Mhm.
And so, you know, we had these big events. They were very successful in terms of having impact in the world. Um, but at the moment, things have to be economically viable. And that means that that the costs cannot exceed the revenue. Um, and we need to find ways to address that either by uh, the prices that we charge, getting support from grants and other charitable sources in order to make those things happen so that we can have the charitable impact. But yeah, this notion that, well, they just used to bring in a lot of money, I think is a tricky one, um, because clearly, the foundation was not doing well financially when I arrived 18 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, not only 18 months ago, I mean, that much I know that Findhorn has always been in financial trouble. So it's like the spiritual community and finance is very difficult to combine. And
Uh, actually, I think they sit very, very well
yeah,
together. And I don't think they are difficult to
no,
combine. Um, I think they are uh, finances and money are resources that just have to be stewarded and used for good. And so this idea that spirituality and money cannot coexist, I don't think that to be true.
mm,
Uh, you know, the notion of manifestation, if we put out into the universe what we need and what we are hopeful for, it comes. I think our job as stewards of that is that we have to be really good stewards and very thoughtful about how we put those gifts to work. Everything that has come into the foundation has been a gift, whether that be time, money, spiritual energy. Um, all of those things have been gifts. And I believe that, one of our key roles going forward is to ensure that we are good stewards of those gifts. And we stay very focused on making sure that we are putting them to their intended use
yeah,
effectively. And we do that in a way that is aligned with our principles, our three core principles. And everything points towards this connection with spirit. And I think if the closer we get to that connection to spirit, the clearer and more aligned that is, everything else will flow towards that. So Yeah, I think actually spirituality and money are not antithetical at all.
Yeah, I mean, there is an importance for the Findhorn Foundation uh, to be back to its spiritual roots. I'm not assuming it has gone astray, but still, the core of the foundation of the whole place was connection to the spirit realm, connection to the
Yes.
nature spirit, and a very deep and nearly esoteric, like very deep spiritual practice. That's the root of it. So probably in becoming smaller, that whole focus will be more clear and will be more easy to maintain.
Yeah, I think, we are very focused on the center thread being the connection to spirit. Surrounding that are the three principles. Um, I think being a small team allows us to remain very focused on that. But we are a growing global community. So over the last even 6 months, I would say our community has grown based on the numbers of people who are subscribed to the newsletter, visitors to the website, people who subscribe to our social media channels. That is growing. And so even though we may have shrunk the core here, our worldwide network is growing. And I think that is tremendous, right? That is great news. But you're right, being really, really focused and great connoisseurs of what we do, and more importantly, what we don't do, uh, that is a path that we need to tread very carefully. I'm very thrilled that uh, as a team, we meditate together every day.
Wow.
In fact, I'm excited that over the next couple of months, we'll be opening up that daily meditation practice to anybody in the network that wants to connect to it. And so that will be another thing that we're sharing with the world, and that had gone away to
Yeah.
many senses here. There are groups on the park who meditate together, but in terms of how can we support that globally out in the world, um, I think that's an important step forward for us.
Yeah, I think Finton has always been a very important part of the network of light, this global, planetary network of light. And there's a huge amount of energy there, and it doesn't need to have, millions of people. It needs a core of people that are dedicated to do the work, that work with big letters, and
Yeah,
that's really important.
the inner work.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
inner work, yes. Wow, yeah. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, I think we covered quite a lot of things, inner and outer. And so, do you have any closing words to say? What is for you personally the most important and thrilling part of what you are living in Fintorn?
Uh, I wake up energized with the knowledge that we stand on a great legacy here that can serve the world to be a better place. And if every day we can share that with someone that otherwise hasn't been exposed to it, and it lights a spark in them and connects them to the network of light, I think we are doing what we need to do. Um, and that's the most important part for me. It is the spiritual connection. Um, it is the frame of the three principles that I think are just so beautifully articulated. And the more that we can support people to be connected in that way and be connected to other people who also see the value in that, that's our role in the world. And that's what gets me up in the morning.
Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you. And yeah, we're all part of this, and it's very exciting. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for being there. Thank you.
you are most welcome. Thank you.